All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nijaah. I'm a mental health professional, speaker, empowerment coach, and new release author of Raising John's Boy, a self-help memoir and guide for single mothers who are raising sons by themselves, in particular African American sons. My empire, Young Men Strong, is an umbrella company specifically designed to educate, empower, and engage African American, Latino boys and men of color through media, consulting, and mentorship. Let's Talk Over Teas is a talk show providing training, education, advocacy, and support for single parents throughout. Please welcome my wonderful guest. I'm the host, Nijaah, and this is my wonderful guest, Pastor Bruce Kirkland. Him and his wife, Dr. Ebony Kirkland, are the mother and father of Church of the Living God and the Worldwide Association of Small Churches. Pastor Bruce, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
God bless you, Howard. How are you, Miss Howard? It's a pleasure to be on this line, and I'm so proud of you and what you're doing in the community. And I think this is a very timely time in our country's history as relates to urban Black men and families. So I'm just glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for coming. So as you know, this is called Let's Talk Over Teas. So I want to know, what kind of tea are you drinking today?
Okay, so my wife started me on this. I'm drinking tea with lemon, and I like green tea because green tea has a lot of antioxidants in it, I'm told. And I know that during this coronavirus, we are all concentrating on the virus, which we should, but I would submit that we should concentrate on the host, and the host is the body. So let us inject ourselves with some of the nutrients and some of the antioxidants that we need to fight the virus, because the body is made to heal itself. You know that.
Amen. Amen. Well, the Bible says we are wonderfully made. So,
We can definitely, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
From healing us first so that we can fight off viruses the way God intended us to do so.
Absolutely. Well, today I'm drinking a new one. I'm drinking Rubos. Have you ever heard of this? It's a earthy vanilla South African healing tea.
Really?
Yes. It has a very pungent but soft taste, and the smell is very earthy, and it's well.
Okay, I like to. You have an extra pack. Let me. I'll bring it to church. I'll try it. And Bishop,
absolutely. 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 So let's jump right on in. Today, our topic is part 2 of Have Black Men Lost Their Luster? So before we jump right in, I just want to know, Pastor Bruce, can we talk a little bit about luster and what that really means to you? Because I really want to drive into have Black men lost this? So what does that mean to you?
Well, luster means to me a certain energy, a certain compassion associated with energy. And our focus, and also our focus, what is our focus as relates to who we are as individuals and who we are as parents? And I think to an extent, if I may respond to that question specifically, I think that Black men, not all Black men, but I think a significant part of our Black men have lost their luster. And luster means to me lost their focus. Focus on who they were created to be as men and as leaders of the family. So I would have to say, unfortunately, I think that Black men in general have lost some of this luster, which is losing some of their focus in terms of who they are.
Yeah. What do you think that came from?
You know what, Mrs. Howard, I think that's a very complex, but we can go back as far as history in this country as slaves, coming to the shores and, of course, being separated from our families, disenfranchised as Black men. I think that's historically started from there, slavery, obviously. And then it morphed over into the 60s where big government was formed. And big government was formed in a way to help folks, but big government was also deleterious to the Black man, I believe. Why? Is because I think that there was a certain amount of dependency that the government came in the house and said, like, I can give you welfare. And a lot of women had to succumb to that because the black men at that point lost his identity. I know they were beaten down. I know they went through a lot of issues, but it actually paid black men to be away from the house, actually, because when the social worker came in, if the husband was there, they couldn't get their social services. So I think that's kind of like, if you look at the lineage from the slavery, shores of slavery, to the denigration of black men, to the welfare state, it all kind of like, morphs into one another. And I think that was the genesis of it. And of course, big government became more big. And as we embraced it, we lost our role, we lost our way somehow in this whole thing of, as you would say, the luster, the lack of luster, the lack of focus of black men.
So then if that's the case, then you can definitely empathize with, the struggle that the mother has to endure, as well as the children who are missing their father, right? I mean, I'm sure you can understand where that anger could come from the mother's perspective.
Absolutely. I think men have abdicated their responsibilities. I don't quite understand where was the disconnect, but sometimes we can overly make an excuse. And I want to be just perfectly honest here. I think sometimes we as black men, I'm talking about myself, I'm a black man, okay? We use excuses sometimes, and I think that the excuses sometimes are not really, I would say, something that we should use. I think effort must exceed opportunity. I know that growing up as a black man historically, there's certain things denied to us, and you had to have a really strong family to really support you. But I think that we have to look around us and see that we have to rise above it. Effort must exceed opportunity. And I'm saying that to a lot of young kids, black kids, as they grow up also. But as you know, now there's more opportunities out there than it was in my day. In my day, they did not have those kind of opportunities. And I can certainly understand the frustrations of the mothers. I see the frustrations of the mothers even currently in this society.
Absolutely. Now, when you say, there's a lot of opportunities out there, do you feel that the men today or young men today are taking advantage of what's out there to make the situation better for themselves and for their family households?
Well, I'm going to sound a little ambiguous. I would say yes and no, but I would say yes, there are men that are trying to make it. I would say, on the other hand, there are still some with the mentality of that no, because some of them, let me be honest, look at women as objects. And I know that when I was raised, I know that a lot of black men use women as objects. And I don't know if it was something to shelter their inadequacy or their sense of frustration in the world, but women would always seem to me as an scapegoat. I know I can even take reference to my own mother, that my father, even though he was a good man, a police officer, he felt he was entitled to engage in other affairs. And that's why I say, when I get married, I'm not going to deal with that, because I know how powerful that can be negatively impacting family.
Absolutely. What I appreciate about what you said just now is that, you made a conscious decision when you saw your father doing it, and it happening to your mother. You made a conscious decision to say, you know what, I got to put a stop to this, that when I get married, and the fact that you even said the word marriage, when you get married, you made a commitment that you would not do this to your wife. And I think personally, I think that's something that's not being done, which is, making a conscious commitment, saying, first of all, the word marriage, not running away from that, but actually moving towards it, and I don't know if that's a word that's even in the vocabulary of many Black men today. What are your thoughts on that, and how to help Black men to see that when you reach a certain, points of your life, this is where your brain is supposed to be developing and thinking about at this point?
Yeah, I make a reference to the Bible for Paul. Paul said, when I was a child, I act like a child. I spoke like a child. But now that I'm a man, I do manly things. So we as Black men, we have to understand that we morph into becoming a man. And with that, that association comes with leadership. And with that, as you know, historically, men are the hunters and gatherers.
Well, how does, and I don't want to cut you off, but I want to, really figure this out, is how does a young man even know what a man looks like when daddy wasn't even in the home or even leadership? How do they know? Because as we know, over 40% of African American men are not in the homes, and so how do we get men to that understanding of how to even be a man if they had no models to even follow after?
That's a very good question. That's a very very good question, and that in and itself is a problem because it leads the child to seek other men or other mentors, and thus you have young men in the urban community joining gangs, or they join people, being attracted people who are in the streets, men now, but these are the wrong type of men. So unfortunately, if you look at Chicago and some urban cities, you see the black youth are drawn to those because that's a support system for them. See, the family is an institution of support. It's the first socialization that kids come in contact with. But to answer your question more specifically, how do you get a young black man who does not have his father in the house to kind of like identify with men? And I would say that it takes the mother. The mother has to then step in. And I think that in many cases, I've seen the mothers play a dual role, both as a father figure, but at the same time, she's forced to also be the mother. So it's up to the mother at that point to point out certain things. I know that I used to, with my daughter, she was in school, I used to point her out to different kind of black figures like King, Malcolm X. I remember we did a report that had to do it on General Powell. He was the first black man under the Reagan administration. So I pointed her out to those kinds of other men that supports the whole notion of black men and positive things. So unfortunately, if there's not a father around, the mother has to pick up that slack.
And see, that's one of the things that, I'm so passionate about in my movement, because we have mothers who have to pick up the slack, like you said, but, we have this negative stereotype that goes around saying, well, only men can raise men, or women cannot raise men. And, with these negative stereotypes, it really is saying, you're not qualified, mom. You don't even have the tools. You're not even on the board in terms of having the qualifications to raise this boy into a man. But yet and still, we're in the house to raise these men by ourselves. So now we have a double whammy. We have the whammy of society saying that, listen, you're not qualified to raise this son into a man. He's going to end up dead, jail, drugs, a young single father, right? Or and now we have the exes who are telling us that we're not qualified to do it. So we have this subconscious belief that we're inadequate, we're incapable, we're not enough, we can't do it. And so imagine having all of those pressures along with the stress of having to uphold the household and paying the rent and the food and the stress and all of that, and then having to raise this young boy, right, into a man who society says you can't do it. So now that stress of being able to, how is that young boy going to grow into a man when he's being raised by a woman who's been broken by a man and who's not there, right?
That is a very, 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 very profound question. And as I said before, I believe a woman can raise a man. It is preferably, however, that there's both a man and a woman is in the household. However, absent of that, I believe it takes a special woman. And I don't know, I don't want to jump ahead in terms of your book, but
You're welcome to.
I'm off in that quickly, but I know you have specific questions about that. But in reading your book, I learned so much about the type of woman. It's a type of woman that can do that. Not all women can do this. The type of woman I'm talking about is the type of woman who can go back into herself and identify who she really is. First of all, as a child of God, and as a woman, as a black woman. You have to know yourself. You have to know your strengths. You have to know your weaknesses, recognize your weaknesses, and work on those, and also your strengths, continue to work on those. And like I said before, it takes a special woman to do this. So the whole notion that a woman can't do it, I would say that's not accurate. It's preferably if a man is there as well, and a woman and a man come together and raise a child, because there's certain gender identity kinds of relationships that a man has with his son and the mother, etc. But I see the mother even right now, even in some of, surprisingly enough, even some of these homes we have the man and woman. I see the boys nowadays gravitating a lot to the mother, even though they're in the whole family. The mother deals with specific things that the mother identifies with. The mother can identify certain idiosyncrasies in her child, and she knows exactly what's happening. I can say that even with my own daughter. I mean, she's really, really on key with that young man that she's raising. He's 13 years old, the father in the house, strong father, but there's some specific types of incidents when that boy still goes to that mother. So yes, a woman can raise a boy, but if you have both equally yoked parents, men and women, of course, that's the preferred model.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. And, it's, we have so many, I don't think men nor women really understand the dynamics of what relationship looks like. I know for me, when I was raising my son, I remember the hurt and the pain that was inflicted on me, which means that I had a broken man trying to break my spirit, but I was yet raising his son. So as a woman who's trying to hold her own self-worth together and trying to find it, I remember being in that broken state. And I remember saying, oh my God, I have got to get out of this situation, because I don't want to hurt the offspring. But we have so many, men who don't understand the dynamic of how important or how much impact they have on the woman who bears their child.
Right. And I've seen this getting worse and worse and worse, unfortunately. I believe the latest statistics I think I reviewed, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it true that 7% of the Black households are raised by women? I'm not sure about that, but I was reading some.
It's over 60%. Over 60%.
Between that. So something has happened in the social fabric of the Black man in this society. And I think, as I said before, I think it has a lot to do with going to historically from slavery to the welfare state. And I think part of that is still being supported in terms of big government. I'm not a big government person, and I think that that causes men to like abdicate their responsibilities because they can depend on somebody else and not on themselves. As Malcolm says, we need a self-help program. We need a do-it-yourself philosophy. We need a do-it-right now philosophy. It's already too late kind of philosophy. And that's the kind of thing we have to do. And I think that we need to train up our men, our Black men, and we need to have mentors out there for them. And we need to strengthen the Black family. We need to come together and say, we are a significant portion of this society. And we can only get what is due us if we come together as strong Black men and women, building strong Black institutions, transferring of wealth to generational wealth. And we can only do that when we come together as a Black family.
And that sounds wonderful, right? Because that's my whole model. One of my slogans is that when we strengthen our boys and men, we stabilize our girls and women. And that sounds wonderful, but for somehow in reality, and don't get me wrong, I want people to understand that we're not talking about all, right? We have to be very, very clear. And I don't want to have to always put that disclaimer out there. If the shoe fits your foot, then you know exactly what we're talking about right now. So when people are watching this, I don't want to say, well, you know, I'm a man, I take care of my kids. Well, we're not talking about you, obviously, right? So we want to be very clear that, you know, we're all on the same page. If I'm on page 13, you're on page 13. Right. And so if it doesn't fit your foot, then guess what? It doesn't apply to you. But if you're living in this climate today, in today's time in 2020, then you are very much aware that a great portion, not all, but a great portion of Black men are not as shined up as they could be. Now, today we're talking with Pastor Bruce Kirkland, who is the father of Church of the Living God and also Worldwide Association Small Churches with his wife, Dr. Ebony Kirkland. Today we're talking about have Black men lost their luster? And so thank you, Pastor Bruce, again for coming on and having this wonderful intellectual conversation over some nice hot tea. So it sounds wonderful to say, you know, we all have to come together, but somehow that's a memo that's not that, you know, the young Black men are just not getting on the notification, they're not getting on their phone, and so or any of their technology. When you say we need to act in urgency and act now, I am in total agreement with you, and that's one of the reasons why I also have a 6-week workshop training called T.E.A.S, which is training, educational, advocacy, and support, because what I do is I help single mothers who are raising African American sons, and we're really learning the how to, right? How to become accountable and responsible, how to obligate ourselves to the ones that we love, so that as we get older, we know how to come back home versus leaving and not returning. You know, how to finish what we start. These are some of the 3 main cores of the workshop training, because it's so important to teach our mothers how, since they're the head of the household, how to teach their sons how to own these levels of maturity, so that they can reach that level of manhood and leadership that we are so expecting them to have when they become men.
Amen. Well, the Bible said, train up a child in the way they want him to go, and when he grows up, he will not depart from it. So those values that you instill, and by the way, I really commend you on what you're doing. You are doing it is so much needed in this society, particularly among us Black folks and African Americans. You are doing such a phenomenal job. We really, really need more people like you. What you're doing, you have taken the gauntlet and you have ran with it, and I applaud you for that. We have to start where we're at. I mean, they said to begin means you're half done. So at some point, we have to begin where we are at, as in terms of our spiritual or psychological being. So with your program, as you teach the women to first of all love thyself, they should love themselves. They have a good feeling about themselves. And I think some women, and not all, does not have a good self-esteem about themselves. They've been beaten down, they've been ostracized, they've been said this and said that, and but we have to, as women, you have to, as women, is to give them the self-esteem that they are women, and they are women of faith, women of strength.
Absolutely.
We need that. So let's begin where we are. I mean, it's very, it's a difficult question, but we have to begin. We have to build more single parent Black mothers to understand that they do have the strength to do it, and that they themselves have to go back and improve themselves and work with themselves. The Bible says, physician, heal thyself. So before they can heal anybody else, they have to heal themselves. And your program is a perfect program, a support program that can do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Pastor Bruce. And it's something, because, on the flip side of that same coin, I'm helping these single mothers because they are doing a job that many of them did not sign up for, but you have to do it, right? We as women, we don't get the option to walk away like men do. So we have to jump on the bandwagon and just do what we have to do, but we don't have always the strategies or the tools or the know-how. And so because God has gifted me with the to get over the trials and tribulations, because believe you me, I've been through it hell and back, but because I was able to get through it, I now want to go back and help those who are going through the same exact thing. When I think about young Black men today, how do you, if they're listening to right now, if they're listening right now, I want to know from you, as a Black man, how do you edify your daughters? How do you edify your wife? And be specific so that we can help young men to understand, to start applying those words and those tones into depositing that into their spirit, so that they can know that this is how you treat your baby mother, your girlfriend, your wife, someone who you're looking to become intimate with, or you just love unconditionally, whether it's your mother or your sister or your auntie. This is how you start to address and talk to them. So how do you do that?
Oh, yeah. The Bible said, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. First of all, it's a renewal process that you have to go through. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you have to say to yourself, what is my purpose here? What do I want to do in life? And you have to look at yourself introspectively and say to yourself that I have to find out what is my weaknesses and what are my strengths. Why do I think certain way? Why do I do certain things certain way? Why do I disrespect women, or I look at women as objects? That's something that you have to go, but you have to be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And sometimes you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you just can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you have to ask for prayer, or go to somebody that you know. When that was happening, when I was growing up, I looked at that and I said to myself, I'm not going to do that, because I see my mother crying every day. And so what I do is that I've grown up to take those lemons and made it into lemonade, whereby I respect women. My mother, matter of fact, I was there with her yesterday because she's going through some changes. That's why, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the time. I was dealing with a woman, dealing with my mother specifically. But men have to come to realize that women are the backbone and the cornerstone of our society, and that women need to be respected. Not because somebody said that they need to be respected, but when God made women, he made man and women, and she made the woman and to be the helper for their partner. I look at the relationship with men and women as a partnership. Some people say that you really need to look at a partnership kind of thing in society, and we have to be a little bit more mature. I think the whole thing, if we ever have a chance to talk about the sexual kinds of demands in our society on men, we need to, at some point later on, address some of the idiosyncrasy of women and how they relate to men and how they allow certain things to happen or support and encourage them. That's a whole different conversation. But this is a tremendous kind of topic to really talk about, which involve both men and women, that they both have to look at themselves, first of all. Because I see some women support that kind of behavior from men. For example, some men may get an attitude because they have a child and they come around every once in a while, every birthday party, they come around and we get a bike, something like that. And I call it the baby mama drama syndrome. The baby mama drama syndrome in the Black community has got to stop, really, because there's always drama associated with that.
Absolutely.
I'm raising a child because I come around every once in a while and buy my son or daughter a bicycle and I go off and do my thing. That sets another image. So when we have another conversation, we need to address those kinds of things. So there's sexual proclivities, there's attitudinal proclivities, there's all kinds of things that were happening in our society that we are deteriorating spiritually in our soul. So we have to bring all of that to bear. And
absolutely.
I think what you're doing, again, I'm not trying to, I'm just so proud of what you're doing, and I'm just so proud of this effort that you've taken upon. This is a massive effort. And I just applaud you on that. So
thank you.
I respect my daughters, and I'm always telling them well, the facts of life. I was very, very specific with them. I told them the difference between a man and a woman. I got into other things. The woman's always a receiver. The men are always, So we talked about anatomy. We talked about the fact that women are receivers, and because you're receivers, you have to understand how to protect yourself. And what does that really mean?
Right. What does that mean? What does that really mean?
Well, it means that a man can do what he wants to do. He has no specific obligation after a while. That's why the woman has to be more discreetful and do not allow herself to be manipulated. And I think the body is a temple of God, and that's one issue. And then we have other issues from the spiritual, psychological perspective that causes women to feel like they have to have a man, and they don't have to have a man at any cost, and they're not walking in their anointing.
Absolutely. It's amazing. When I was when you say, walking in your anointing, and women have to know how to walk in that, I remember when I used to be humbly embarrassed to even acknowledge what I'm going to say, but it took me about 7 years to really, really, really listen to God and be molded into who I am today. I didn't allow men to come into my space except for dinner and a date. That was it. But nothing too heavy, because I was working on me. And so as women are listening to this now, single moms, I really want moms to understand that you do not have to put down a man. You don't have to be validated by a man. You don't have to think like a man or become a man to solidify and legitimize your self-worth and ability to raise your son and become the woman who you can be. And so I want women to understand that it takes time to get you to be in your best self. It takes time, and time means healing. You got to give yourself time to heal from any bruises or brokenness that was engulfed into your life. Listening to what you were saying, Pastor Bruce, about men and women relationships, I want to talk a little bit about, because I heard Dr. Ebony Kirkland say this one time, and I thought it was so phenomenal when she said this. And she said that, she really helped to break down what it means for a woman to be submissive in a relationship. I want you, from a male's perspective, to help women understand what that looks like under the covenant of God for the females, in the way the woman should look at it. And I want you to help it from a male's perspective and how he is supposed to perform with that term in a relationship, a healthy relationship. What does it mean when they say a woman is to be submissive? What are both roles?
Wow, that's a tongue turn, and normally pastors get some trouble with this with the women, but the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, he says that, first of all, from the perspective of God, it is that God made man, so God's relationship is definitely vertical with God. Then he made woman out of man, out of the rib. So women are supposed to be submissive to men. But the Bible also says, and what does that look like, submissive? Submissive, I know that sounds like a category that means that you are sequence, you play a lower role. No, it means a partnership. The Bible also says, as far as the man's responsibility, it says a man is to love his wife as Christ loved the church. And a man is to love his wife as he loves his own body. That's a commandment from God. That's in the Bible. So naturally, if we love our bodies, we're going to treat the women as if they're part of us. And from a biblical perspective, the Bible, shows that took a man, put man to sleep, and actually took a rib out of man and made woman, and he formulated her. He really got his hands wet and formulated woman. And when Adam saw the woman, he was pleased. But if you go back from the beginning of time, that man in the Garden of Eden allowed the woman to do the forbidden thing that God told her not to do and do. The man at that point, from the beginning of time, abdicated his responsibility. Because what he should have done, he should have said, you know, you're not supposed to eat from the fruit of knowledge. He told you that, and she ate it anyway. So I think men obligated his responsibility from the beginning. So that's why we had to have this whole thing came into the world, sin came into the world, and Jesus Christ had to come in. It's a long story, it's a long theological story. But the point is that men were always supposed to be in charge. And when I say in charge, it's supposed to be the protector. It's supposed to be the hunter, the gatherer, the man that protects a woman. At the same time, the woman was supposed to come and do things that she does to help undergird the man, and they will be one. He says, leave mother and father and cleave the wife and children, and they shall be one. One.
Amen.
The man is supposed to be one.
Absolutely.
We just don't operate in that. And sometimes teeth and tongue will meet. When I say in a relationship, that's always there. I'm not going to say that it's not there. Even the best of us, you know, we may have a disagreement, but we don't have to be disagreeable. But man and women is supposed to be one under God.
One under God. So what I appreciate about that, and thank you for breaking that down. Let me see if I can help it, put it in layman's terms, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
But if your man, and I'm gonna put it in this perspective, because I think most of my listeners are like real down to earth, like Bible, what? I don't understand those terms. so I'm gonna break it down a little bit, and if I'm wrong, please help me to understand. But so basically, when your man is a child of God, and he understands the child of God, and he's one with God like this on the cross,
yes.
right?
Yes.
You as his woman are submissive in a way that you honor him, you respect him, and you value him, because by him being so connected with God, he understands how to treat you the way you deserve. So because he knows how to treat you, you just genuinely take out, do whatever, husband and wives do, or girlfriend and boyfriends do, because you both are one under God. So I hope I was able to explain that a little bit, even more down to earth. It's like,
right on the button. And consequently now, obviously, if the man is not doing what he's supposed to do, obviously we wouldn't want you to follow him off the bridge. If he's going off the bridge, you're going to go off the bridge. No, the Bible says use wisdom, but you put it perfectly right. It all is contingent upon where the man is spiritually.
Absolutely.
And sometimes men need help and women need help. Yes, we all need to. Sometimes we all kind of like go off the path, so to speak. But we all to help each other get back on that path. Yes,
absolutely.
We're supposed to do that, and we're supposed to love that woman as we love our own bodies. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's so key. If you can love the person that you're with the way that you love thyself,
yes,
then you have yourself a nice whole couple here. A couple that's whole. And I'm a big advocate for, before jumping into a relationship, make sure you have your stuff together. And that doesn't necessarily mean, let me explain that. Let me break that down, because so many people have this perception. We have I have a lot of friends who are in high places. They make good money, and they think that it's all about how much money you make and what your status is, what your title is. And you know what? God is not boastful. It's not about how much money you have and how much titles you have. Can this person give you companionship? Or do they have good listening skills? Are they there? Are they loyal to you? Are they someone who shows up when you are standing in the rain and they, your car breaks down and they're the only ones there? Those are the things that I want women to start looking at in terms of the real values of what makes someone worthy and qualified for you. That's what you should be looking for, not looking for, well, how fast is his car? How big is his booty? How much money is he making? How nice is his shoes? Those things are so materialistic and can so go out the door. But if he's not kind to you, if he's not gentle and respectful, and he shows up on time and he's there, then that's what makes a good quality person, good character. So I'm hoping that those are, as women who are listening tonight, single moms, single women, I'm hoping that they understand that these are the qualities that you need to be looking for in a good God-fearing man.
Amen.
So, so just to circle it back in, what do you think? Give me 3 to 5 things in terms of what you believe, as we close this out, that you feel Black men can do to really restore and regenerate their shine, their luster, their swag.
Okay, number one, it all begins, they said the word attitude is the position of the mind. And I believe I would start with one. First of all, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. Okay. Your attitude is also directs you in terms of what you do. So I would say we have to develop, everything begins with the mind. And what are we thinking about? Our thoughts are a sum total of who we are. What are we thinking about? What are we as men thinking about? So let's try to find out what we're thinking about and try to renew our minds. Number 2, do not be afraid to get help. Seek someone that can mentor you. Seek someone that is not necessarily basketball players. Let's get off this whole thing about basketball players. Okay, that's fine, but seek somebody, either a mentor, or uncle. I mean, I admire a lot of my uncles that I grew up with. That's number 2. Seek a mentor. 3, read, study to show yourself approved. And as a pastor, I would have to say, obviously, I'm talking about one book, and one book that I think we all should be reading, that Black men. And it's not about even religion, whatever religion is, whether it's Christianity, find your spiritual anchor. That's number 3. Who is your spiritual anchor? Some may feel it's Christ, and that's your spiritual anchor. Some may have another, but find a spiritual anchor, man. That's number 3. Number four, after we study, after we renew our mind, find a mentor, read some inspirational, I think, book of God, and whatever religion that may be. I happen to think that Christ is the one, and that's what I believe in. So 4th, I think you have to actually do something, okay? What you learn positively, we have to put into action, because action makes it become a habit. What you want to do is that you want to do things that are right according to what is right in your spirit and what is right as you know it to be, and practice it. Let it become a habit. And lastly, I think is number 5. So number 5, right? Mm-hmm. Number 5, I would say that once you have achieved those ends, then mentor somebody else. Mm-hmm. In other words, what you have learned positively. I love mentoring boys and men and things like that, because I was mentored. Mm-hmm. Then pass that on. Amen. Pass on your goodwill, because the Bible says that love thy neighbors as thyself, and we are all neighbors, no matter if you live in Costa Rica, but we're all a neighbor. So love thy neighbor as thyself. So those are the 5 things I would say.
That's excellent. That is excellent, Pastor Bruce. So as we wrap this up, I just want to say really quickly, is there any last minute thoughts or questions or statements you wanted to make in regards to raising John's boy? Because you was one of my first few hundred buyers that got it right away. And so do you have anything that comes to your mind off the top of your head?
Okay, so if there's only a few hundred buyers, that should be on the $1 million seller list. I think there's so many plans to get that book, and I'll tell you why you need to get that book, right? When I first read the first paragraph of the book, I was so drawn into the clarity and I was also drawn into the struggle. I like the book because you were honest. You were raw at sometimes, which some women need to hear that. You were raw at sometimes. You were factual. And I like the way you also inculcated that with the ethnicity. For example, when you talked about a certain different cultures raising a black boy, let that black child understand who he is and his culture. I thought that was beautiful. And I think the book was so pervasive in terms of its knowledge and things like that. I think not only the single woman should read it, I think that every parent should read that. I think there will be a better mother. I think there will be a better a soulmate. I think you have a lot in that book that is not only directed to, obviously, is directed to a single parent family, but also other women and families. And maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're struggling out there with relationship. Maybe you're struggling with raising, but get that book. That book, I think, how you did a phenomenal job. And it's called, I love every minute I was reading, Raising John's Boy. Get that book because that is a specific book about life and pure her experience, and she tells it to you raw. And I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Awesome.
God bless you, Ms. Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Bruce. Thank you so very much. So as we wrap this up, I just want to thank you, Pastor Bruce, for being my guest today. As we know, I do believe that every child deserves to be living in a healthy, happy, and balanced home. And, balanced meaning that, even if the father is not there, it is, even though that would be ideal, it's so important to not lose that sense of respect for the parent, the mother. And so it's so important to understand the mother and the woman's plight. So my goal is to help restore the Black family value and really making that strong again. So in order to do that, I do believe that when we strengthen our boys and our men, we stabilize our girls and our women. I want to thank all of my guests today who's listening out there. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Pastor Bruce on Have Black Men Lost Their Luster? And the way that I see it, I don't think so. I think there's always room for dusting off and getting shine again. So thank you and have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.